topic is African Americans and reparations, and we're talking to Dr. Al-Hadid. And Dr. Al-Hadid, let me apologize for so abruptly ending the second segment, but it always happens with you that you're giving us so much information that we want to try to get as much of it as we possibly can. But let's devote this last segment to talk about reparations, but some of the possibilities that you see of how, if this is to happen, how African Americans can be compensated for in terms of reparations.
Yes. Since we started with history, let's end this section also with history, and we have to go back to the original reparation that was proffered by the government, which was 40 acres and a mule, which had passed the Congress as well as the the Senate as well as the House of Representatives, and then was vetoed by the president at that time. So there was a goodwill or an intent there to grant that reparation, but it was sort of taken out of the picture due to the veto. Now, when we come to how would reparations be paid today, there are a number of suggestions. One, of course, would be in some denomination of money. Then you would have to decide whether you're going to give it to families or individuals. Another would be in terms of job training. Another approach would be, as we were talking about earlier, in terms of fair housing and providing, housing that is decent for African Americans. And when you look at the fact that many of our people are on welfare, and many of them are not the beneficiaries of affirmative action, maybe those gaps can be closed in terms of getting people up and running. Now, in terms of how I look at the compensation, I think that education is the key. And where I think we should start with that would be, first of all, the neighborhood schools across the country, and secondly, the historically black colleges across the country. And now you have historically black colleges in Chicago and Los Angeles, when they used to be from Washington, D.C. to Texas, mainly a southern phenomenon. So we start with those colleges and make them competitive. If they are state schools, they should be properties of the people. All of these schools should be owned and controlled by African Americans. The curriculum should be changed, and it should be centered in the culture and the history of African Americans. So they should be deliberately set up in order to bring African Americans into the knowledge of the historical culture and the heritage, and also to help them clearly define who they are as an ethnic group, and to move the conversation away from race, but culture and ethnicity. And then another approach to that curriculum should be developing a strategy of economic self-determination. Because the way the capitalist system is organized today, it is fresh out of welfare, and it's fresh out of affirmative action, even though we know the system itself is responsible for creating and manufacturing unemployment and poverty, which are the sources of welfare, and which is the sources of people having a need for affirmative action. So I think if we create educational institutions, and we have 117 colleges, if those were properly structured in terms of the curriculum, with the view in mind of making African Americans self-sufficient, self-reliant, then that would be the key, and make us competitive in a capitalist economic system. The capitalist economic system is the only economic system on the whole planet. So we need to be taught how to be major players in the capitalist economic system, not so that we'll be vulturistic and exploitive the way the European capitalists are, but at least so that we can get in the marketplace, find our way in that marketplace, get rid of the poverty and the unemployment in our community, and create a situation where the average African American is at least middle class according to America.